professional, the final qualifying exam. But in that qualification process, you get 4 attempts. If you recall, under our system, the ICAZ system, you get 6 attempts. So you've got your CTA eligible for you to, to write the final exam for 3 years. And we have 2 sittings in each year, so you get 6 attempts. So in that case, it's more restrictive. If you could move on. So examinations is one of the critical things. Please keep going down. Sorry, just wait. I think go up a little bit. Examinations is a thing that I think most people are worried about. And they're saying, is this exam at the same standard as what we are used to, given some of the lower entry requirements? And what you see is that from a psych and ICAW point of view, we've looked at pass rates. We've looked at the caliber of person that is produced, and there are also surveys that are done in universities, employers, the world over that ICAW has done, and those ratings are quite favorable. So from that perspective, it would be hard for anyone to say that this qualification is a cheap qualification, and it's not well regarded. If it's well regarded in most of Europe, the UK, and a number of those countries that I've listed there, China, India, Kenya, quite a lot of across Africa. Please, could you go down again? Okay. So one of the things, if you notice our membership base and how we are based, 50% in Zimbabwe, 50% outside Zimbabwe. One of the things that ICAEW has done extremely well is they've made themselves a global qualification. And our relevance as a local body here with 50% of our members outside the country slowly diminishes, which is why you find our diaspora chapters to some extent have certain frustrations about the way we do things, because we haven't metamorphosized into a body that recognizes that we are more global. And with these mutual recognition agreements and with the mobility of the young people that are qualifying, if you notice, most of our members, close to 50% are sort of within 0 to 10 years, and most of them are in the 0 to 5 years of post-qualification. So you're looking at a young mobile member who's looking for a global experience. They're not looking for a Zimbabwean experience. So what we are looking to do as well is to become more of a global body. What ICAEW also does is it allows you tiers into the profession. So there may be people who want to study to a certain level who don't want to become chartered accountants. So if you look at an economy like Zimbabwe, we're mostly composed of SMEs. And if you look at countries across the world, in an informal economy, you need to be relevant to the circumstances that confront you. Our current qualification only produces the top end of the profession. If we don't fill that space, someone will fill it. Don't think that we'll be in a space where we will just enjoy this privilege, we remain restrictive. Someone will come and fill the gap if we don't fill it. And what we want to do is to make sure that we can also become relevant at every level of the qualification that we have. Obviously, the CA remains the prize qualification. We keep that standard. What ICAEW also does is they offer other programs as well beyond the CA. So they will offer corporate finance programs. They've partnered with some of the top universities in the world, to offer some of these programs. So we want to offer our chartered accountants qualification the ability for you to study beyond the CA and get ICAW, ICAZ certified programs. So we believe we can enhance what we can deliver to the CA. If you go down, I think right down to the conclusions. So when we did our rating like for like, I think you can stop there. Our belief was that ICAEW is at least on par, if not in some cases higher, in terms of brand recognition, exam structure, mode of study, support for the student as they are studying, compared to the route that we're currently following. And I need perhaps to emphasize that when you get the ICAEW qualification, what you're doing is, it's a study method. The CAZ is what you're actually studying for, similar to what we're doing under the PSYCA route, that effectively you're still studying to become a chartered accountant in Zimbabwe. So our brand remains the primary brand that operates within Zimbabwe. All we are saying is we're partnering with somebody who is stronger on a global level. And if we think of our members in the UK, and if you noticed on our stats, the UK is the second largest with over 200 members. What you're saying is we want those members to be able to receive support services as well and to link into some of the structures and the programs in all those countries that we've looked at. In terms of mutual recognition agreements, which is also one of the reasons we believe these are on par, I think ICAZ got 8, and I think ICAZ is 7, but it's pretty much the same bodies. So in terms of recognition worldwide, ICAZ is just, ICAW is just as recognized as your ICAZ entry route. In terms of the qualification process, we mentioned that yesterday that ICAZ only allows South African accredited universities to offer the entry point. And we were saying that is restrictive. What we need to do is to have entry points that have nothing to do with the South African system. And I know there was a point where we said localization, and people were worried that that will lower the standard. But if you see where things are going with UNISA unilaterally cancelling our study, the study arrangement that we had before, with all the things that are happening with currency, we need to also be proactive and think about what are the risks that we face as a result of this. So our conclusion is that we should explore, and our conclusion was not that we drop the ICAZ route, is that the two would work side by side with each other. ICAZ will probably remain the predominant one, but what it allows us to do is to understand what exactly we are asking for. And when we come to this kind of a forum, we can bring statistics, we can bring testimonials of what exactly has happened. And because we're working on the two, it allows us the experience of benchmarking how this process has actually worked. So I just wanted to give you that short presentation so that you appreciate that there has been a rigorous study into what is being proposed. And that study and that process has probably been a 2-year process that we've done. So it's not something we've done in the last month leading up to winter school. And if there are concerns, staff complement alone is almost half the size of our membership base. Just to give you a context of the scale. In terms of members, I think they have 140? Is it 140,000? Compared to our 2,000. So when you talk of developing structures and developing resources for our members, if you don't have that level of economies of scale, there's no way you're going to compete in the global environment. So that's my presentation to you, and then we can invite questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry.
Well said, Mr. President. I think Senior Vice President want to also make a comment. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I just wish to emphasize the issue of dilution of quality and standing of our brand if we open up this new pathway. I think what you would recognize is that because of the MRA that we have, if we have a member who is a chartered accountant ICAO at the moment, all they need to do to become a CAZ is to actually apply. So we already have that open up already. We already have some members who actually did the ICAO route and simply applied to become CAZ. So the issue of whether we are now diluting our qualification has already been done with, because the MRA that is in place is already opened up that. So this process will allow us to perhaps even have more control on the type of CA that is produced, because now we will be responsible for setting some of the exams like the tax and the law ourselves, and also we can actually set the minimum requirements higher than what ICAO is setting it at the moment, so that we are able to even to be in better control of the product that comes out through the ICAO route. But otherwise, the pathway is already there. It's just now, it's an application process, but we want to also open it up and control it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that brings more clarity, and we invite questions now. Any questions from the floor? Yes, sir. Just wait for your mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, for the presentation. From where I'm sitting, I think we're misaligned in terms of what exactly we're discussing or debating. It seems to be there's a mismatch between agreeing on the strategy that we want to take as an institute and the process. What is being discussed here is essentially the process as to how do we get to that level of global recognition, how do we get to that relevance in terms of increasing our numbers and having a reliable footprint across this global village that we now find ourselves in. I think there's not too much debate there. What I'm seeing is essentially agreement and alignment on the strategy to say, okay, so we want, this is the strategy that we want growth in numbers by any means, and is the strategy that we want that global relevance. If we agree on that strategy, that immediately takes away this debate because everyone knows that this is the direction we want to take. I personally am not agreed or aligned to the strategy of numbers by any means. And I do understand that we need to have that quality and that relevance. And where I sit, that can still come. Mutual reciprocal agreements are exactly that. They are agreements, and they put in exactly what you want to take out. And if anything, the recent Brexit move has shown us that agreements can be reversed should people feel otherwise, depending on what the school of thought is dictating. I'm sitting as a young CA. I've gotten a qualification that is now significantly impaired relative to what it was 10 years ago. I'm now looking at a palette where I'm having to now do CFA. I'm having to beef up with the right level of MBA on top of that CA. And now when this increased dilution comes in, and to put it into perspective, someone who did articles and failed for whatever reason to qualify as a CA, if they go the ACCA route, which most of them do, and they become ACCAs, for them to join ICAZ, they just have to write one paper essentially, and I stand corrected, which is the tax conversion, which from the people I know who've written it, it wasn't that difficult unless if it's changed. So that person then comes back with a letter to ICAZ, and they're now essentially a CA. And if you look at the number of ACCAs that we've got in our local Zimbabwean community, and what that potential represents to the dilution, to me that scares me. And I'm questioning why do we need to have 1 million members or 2 million members, whatever that number we're chasing is. And I refuse to accept that there's a relationship between members and quality. We can be 500 in a room and we can still get that quality. It's just a question of saying what exactly are the standards that we want, and what are the ways to getting them, and who can we partner with without necessarily getting the busload of members that come through.
Thank you very much. I think that's quite insightful. I would want to invite the CEO to comment on the ACA route, but more precisely to just clearly articulate the strategy. He's saying, what's the strategy? Do we need to increase numbers? Do we need more numbers? Are we not diluting our profession? What exactly is our strategy?
Our strategy is not increasing the numbers by any means. Certainly, we are not. We do not want to do that, and this is why we're going through a very careful process. I think the issues that the president articulated are clear. With respect to ACCA, translating to ICAW membership, it is not correct. Maybe it used to be the case to say they write the text paper. The information that we have is that they have to write that last stage, the case study, before they can become members.
I think the question of strategy is a critical one, and whether it's numbers by any means necessary. And what I would say to that is, the conclusion here is that the final exam is at par, at least on par with the psyche exam. So what you're saying to yourself is, when you talk of quality and dilution of the brand, it becomes irrelevant, because what you're saying is at the final stage, you're getting more or less the same quality. I think that's where the focus should be, rather than on saying there's different entry routes into that, because whatever entry route you follow, you will still have to pass that final entrance exam. And if you're ACCA, you still have to go through it. So I don't think there'll be a dilution in terms of brand. But the point that Gloria made is that effectively this is not a decision that as members you need to take. The decision has already been made through the process of globalization. Whether you like it or not, you can have ICAW come and open up at number 3 Bath Road. We are on 2 Bath Road. Call themselves a chartered accountancy profession, register with Admire, and compete with you directly. Take up all the ACCAs, all the CIMAs and everything, and become a bigger body than you. So you can fight with your 500 people and say, we are the best quality. But truth be told, when someone says I'm ACAEW and someone says I'm CAZ, you can ask Tawanda who's coming from the UK. Will people regard Tawanda as being more astute as a professional than the ICAW? You probably find with all the problems and brand recognition of the Zimbabwe, brand Zimbabwe, that ICAW will probably carry higher weight beyond Zimbabwe. So really, ladies and gentlemen, we can fight progress, but I think the train has already left the station, and we will just be left at the station if we keep arguing for the things we did in the past. I think those will not serve us with where we are going, and also with this thing that now, with learning becoming, more e-learning and all this sort of stuff, and if you don't have that capacity to produce those types of materials within ICAZ, you need to have the right partnerships.
Thank you, sir. I've got a hand there, or there is a hand there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. It's correct. You need to write the final paper for one's got ACCA to be an ICAW member. I think the biggest challenge we have is traditionally competes with the ACCA brand locally. Those are the two main bodies that compete in terms of what accountants are coming out into the market. And I speak from a firm that registers both ACA and is a platinum member for ICAW in training. You've got that comparison of, and the moment we take a decision that is so radical and shows we are moving towards accepting the ACCA brand, already that's going to impair us, and that's going to create a perception that we have now accepted they're a better brand. So we need to watch out for that as we do that switch. We need to make sure we've covered that. Then the second point is, if ICAW is going to accept a member, if I know that right now, as Gloria pointed out, it's easy for an ICAW member to be an ICAZ member, but it's also difficult for one to be an ICAW member as they are. So as it stands, that's fine. And the point is, if I can be an ICAW member without going through ICAZ, why do I need to go to ICAZ? Because I can do my ACCA, finish my ACCA, get the ICAW membership, I'm done. Why do I need the ICAZ brand? So we've got something more to deal with. That is not just affiliating ourselves with ICAW, because we're already affiliated, as Gloria said. But if a student does their ACCA and goes to ICAW, and we have already now claimed that ICAW is going to be a better brand than ourselves, I think our preoccupation right now is to make sure whatever route we take, whatever model we take as an institute, feeds into, or it's got that mutual recognition into easily becoming an ICAW member. There's no problem with that, because that's how we get our global recognition. But if the moment we've got a pathway that suggests that our competitor is at par or is better than us, we can impair ourselves. I think that's my contribution.
Thank you very much, sir. There was a hand there before this hand. Can you go over there?
Thank you, Mr. President, for your insightful presentation. My issue is to go with our relevance, the relevance of the current members who are in the diaspora. Are they seeing any value in them remaining members of the ICAZ brand. Because ideally, when one converts into a CASA, they would see no value. That's why we are losing numbers to South Africa. They will say, what's in it for me? If the CASA brand is recognized better than the CAZ brand, what's in it for him to pay that $400 annual subscription? So it's an issue of us trying to safeguard this brand in the event of this global. Really look at ourselves and say our persistence is wrong, is going in the negative direction, because we need to maintain those numbers that have come up, but currently we are losing those numbers. So what is it that is wrong with our brand?
Thank you, sir. At this stage, I would invite the President to make a comment before we invite the next speaker. I see, Gloria, you wanted to say something?
Thank you. Maybe I'll just respond to the very last comments that were made. The issue of us retaining members is a function of what is happening with our membership, where they are going outside the country to practice elsewhere. So when one goes to the UK or to South Africa, for instance, and they become a CAZ or a CASA or an ICAO, then obviously they are more relevant using the qualification of that particular lens. So it's not so much about what we are not doing right to lose the members, but it's the economy. It's people going out there to find jobs elsewhere, the globalization that we've just spoken about. When it comes to the issue of, and I want to stress this, the issue of quality, when we compare to ICAO, we are not saying by opening up this pathway, we are saying they're better than us or they're superior. We are just saying we are opening up another pathway that is similar to SAICA, because remember, we also have the SAICA route already. We know that these two are at par. They are internationally recognized. So if we open up this pathway, it's just an alternative to also get other members who are going through ICAO direct and then perhaps would apply to come to CAZ. But we also have control now over the process because we've opened it up and we're able to manage it by setting our own strict, perhaps minimum requirements and so on. So I do not see it really as a compromise to quality at all. Yes, the numbers will come through, but it's not a numbers issue. I think it's the quality will still be maintained. So perhaps the discussion here should be, when we look at the current pathway, which is SAICA, and we look at the pathway that we're trying to also open as an alternative, are we saying when we look at SAICA and when we look at ICAO, will we really compromise by opening up ICAO? So if we just look at the two, without even looking at anything else, I think the research that has been done shows that those are at par. In fact, the report is actually saying ICAO might be better in most aspects than SAICA. So that, I think that's how we need to look at this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. CEO, sorry, we'll be coming back to you.
Thank you. I think just a couple of corrections on the facts. I think we need to get our facts right, because if our facts are not correct, then we may end up with wrong conclusions. Firstly, ACA members do not automatically become ICAW members, and that is a fact. They have to write the advanced stage. So it's not like if you get ACA, you then apply to be ICAW and you get it. No, you still need to write an examination. So if that is the case, then it's not the case to say ICAW is at par with ACA, if the ACA members still have to write an exam. The second thing is that reciprocal membership requires that one maintains their home membership. So if you are ICAZ member, CAZ, you go to South Africa, you apply to become SAICA member based on the reciprocal membership, you cannot then ditch the CAZ. You are required to maintain the home membership, the one that enabled you to get the reciprocal membership, unless you wrote the exams. And lastly, it is not easier, I'm still on the facts, for ICAW members to become CAZ members than it is for CAZ members to become ICAW. It's the same. The process is the same. If there's anyone who has wanted to become ICAW member and had difficulty, please, you can say it or you can come and see me, because as far as I'm concerned, it should be the same process. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. I'll go to you. All right, Tawanda, you can go, Tawanda.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to add, to the point that was raised by Mars, on the ACA members, when they want to become ACAs, over and above this case study which they need to write, they also need to have the practical experience through an ICAO registered organization. So if someone has done all the exams in ACA through another company, they still need that practical experience, just like what we did through the articles and everything. So it's not necessarily worked well. That's why in terms of the numbers, they've got about 140,000 members, and they still maintain quality. So this is a point whereby we as an institute, instead of us being comfortable with where we are, we really need to think long and hard in terms of how can we become a player, because we are really competing with these guys. So we really need to look at what has worked well for them and take that into account, and also making sure that at the same time we maintain quality. I think one thing that I just need to emphasize is if we look at the pathways that are being discussed and having seen how it works, quality will not be compromised. Quality will not be compromised because the exams and the training experience will still be there. So quality will not be compromised. And even some of the members say, for example, the ACA, if they want to join, they still need to have that practical experience. So quality will not be compromised, but it's an element of saying the world has moved on. Guys, let's not keep on where we are. Let's move with the world, and let's make sure that our brand will continue to be a global player. That's the thing that I just wanted to point out. Thank you.
Thank you, Tawanda. He's saying quality is not compromised. I will come to Ms. Rodzi in a minute. I just wanted him to make his comment, then Mr. Rodzi.
I support the move to ICAO, but what I need to make the point is the fact that our institute, to qualify, there's two components. There is the academic component, and then there is the practical experience component. Yes. You have people who qualify to be ACA without working. So we need to make sure that we on the academic side, I think we at par, but we need to make sure that we do cover the issue of the training, and making sure that when we take on people who come from the same way that we do for articles.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rodzi.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think I wanted to reiterate the point that he has raised, that on the practical side is obviously where we need to watch, and I can assure you that Council is very alive to that. We're not just saying, somebody has started sitting at home, like you rightly say, and tomorrow they wake up and say, you know what, I've got this academic qualification, now I want to join and become a CA. It will not work that way. The second point I wanted to also emphasize is the fact that we are not saying we are abandoning SAICA. We are looking at ICAO as another pathway to becoming a CA, so that the two run in parallel. And taking into account the recognition that they are already members of ICAZ, i.e. firm members of ICAZ, who are already on the ICAO pathway. So this is a reality that as ICAZ we're going to deal with. Otherwise, we're going to have members of ours who are on the ICAO route and that we are actually not monitoring and controlling the quality aspects of. I think the third point I wanted to make before I sit down, Chairman, is that as Council and through the exam board which I currently chair, the aspects of quality, the aspects of comparison are being very vigorously looked at. I can assure you that your Council guards very jealously the ICAZ qualification, the ICAZ brand, and the quality aspects that make us what we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I invite 2 comments only because our time is running short. We need to beat our Choe trip. Okay, we have him and the lady over there. Yes.
Okay,
So
good
that's
morning. Good morning. I just have probably two questions and a comment for the Presidium. The first one is I'm struggling to understand and reconcile the fact that, as the President said, ICAO can come set up at number 3 Bath Road, hypothetically, but we have an MRI in place. Surely, if we have an MRI in place, I think there should be safeguards against that for them coming here. If we're in